curriculum.
So
You're listening to the Getting Smart podcast,
where we explore what's new and innovative in education. And today we're discussing principals, supporting teachers as curriculum designers, specifically from the perspective of an elementary school principal in Florida.
That's right. Michael Corneau has been principal of Robert Louis Stevenson Elementary School in Brevard County, Florida for about 12 years. And for the past 3 years, Michael has guided his teachers in developing standards-based lessons for literacy-saturated curriculum.
So teachers do this by collaborating through free tools provided by Literacy Design Collaborative, aka LDC, which is an online instructional design system created to help student literacy skills and to better prepare them for college and career success.
So we asked Barb Smith, Director of Partnerships and Professional Learning at LDC, to sit down with Michael to ask him more about transforming his school into one where LDC is a philosophy.
Michael, thank you so much for joining me today. I'm really excited to talk with you.
I'm very happy to speak with you, Barb.
Could you, Michael, possibly give us some background on Stevenson Elementary? Tell us a little bit about the culture and your students.
Sure. Stevenson is located on Merritt Island in Florida. We have approximately 22% minority poverty rate here at the school. We are a school that enrolls 500 students. I have on teaching staff 35, total complete staff of 52. I have been the principal here at the school for the last 16 years. And in terms of getting involved with LDC, we have been on board for the last 3.5, now almost close to 4 years.
Thanks, Michael. Could you tell us a little bit about, how that's impacted the culture of your school?
Well, all for the positive, I can start there. We began our involvement with LDC back with summer training 3.5 years ago. And prior to that, I take the school improvement process quite serious, and I have been working with the staff to develop a variety of teaching practices that I thought would yield better quality learning. In that, for example, we had studied the idea of formative feedback and what it looks like to the idea of high order questioning. What good quality professional learning communities look like, or learning teams look like. And we had reached a point in time where I felt that the staff was ready for them building curriculum on their own versus utilizing the prescribed curriculum that was coming out of the state adoptions, the basal work that had been prescribed by the DOE. And at a point in time where district level personnel from instructional services afforded me an opportunity to come to training on this idea called LDC and utilizing a curriculum framework. When I received that training, it was the best training, and I still state that to this day, that I had ever received out of Gainesville. And I came back to the school with just a lot of different ideas. About a week and a half later, the district contacted me asking how I might get involved with the LDC. Would I consider it, and if so, how? I began to tell them at that point that I was going to institutionalize it as a school-wide initiative. And from there, took a big leap of faith that I would be able to do it. They questioned me that I would go school-wide with it, thinking that I might answer the question they had, which was to do it in a grade level or a number of classes, and that would be the end of it. But I felt that we were at a good place in time where I could introduce a framework to a staff because they were amenable to change. simultaneously, I have to say that I had been working with the idea of Carol Dweck's work in regard to change process and growth mindset. And so, I mean, you've got to build a culture in place where people are receptive to the idea of change. At the same time, though, I also knew that I had to also lead by example. And so with that, I took the initiative to create a module with my assistant principal so that there would be a framework with LDC and then an example built into the framework. That's where I came in, building a piece of curriculum on my own. The curriculum I thought was, reasonably good. I picked the text to support the template task question and scaffolded mini lessons that would support the end product. And out of it, learned that through my own practice, I had made assumptions that I couldn't carry out because the students had not been taught a particular set of skills. I presented the flawed module to the staff. They carried it out because we didn't know at that time what our end results would be. I didn't have that preconceived notion that there were gaps in our instruction. But what it did lead to in analyzing as we saw the results, which were great results for what the kids were able to do, our students, but they did not lead to the actual conception of what I had thought would happen. I ended up telling my staff that I led them down the wrong path and that I had made a flawed module. That in itself created such a strong bridge and a bond with our staff. It was an opportunity at this point for them to realize that their administrator was flawed, and it permitted them to ask the question, if you want me to create modules in the future, will you accept the flaws in my module? And I said, absolutely, because we're all learners first. And so when you talk about the culture, that's the culture of Stevenson, a culture that I'm truly proud of, in that we have people who are willing to take risks in order to learn, and then to take what we have made by mistake, learning opportunities out of that.
Michael, that's such a great anecdote. And having had the opportunity to visit Stevenson, I can just really echo that I've had the opportunity to witness this culture firsthand, and to be at a school where 20 teachers are willing to open their classroom doors and say, come on in, and to fail forward, to learn together. It's truly exciting. Michael, as I hear the journey that you and the teachers have been going on, as you're continuing to improve your school and continuing to develop as a school community, I'm wondering if you could just think about why it's really important to you that teachers can develop and share their own resources.
I think that there's so much power in teacher leadership. It's almost laughable. It's not laughable. It's taken quite serious. When you build a culture that is free from fear, where there's opportunity given to them to actually explore ideas and to work together, everybody benefits from that learning process. And so here at our school, what I did was I've worked with manipulating a schedule where time is always an issue, to disband these old paradigms that I had about how we structure meeting time. I used to be a strong proponent of working in a large group, the whole faculty meeting kind of process thinking. To realize there are other ways of doing this. People I have found work more comfortably in small groups where they can be individualized, be able and afforded the opportunity to share out their experiences and their ideas, that I took this idea of PLC and decided to create vertical teams that were built on the premise of 6 to 7 people instead of 35 people coming together all at once. And when you designate and build automatically into a teacher's schedule that opportunity, things happen. People start to understand that there's an impact and a way of looking at how these standards build in their complexity and their depth, or the intent of the standard, the cognitive knowledge that is built in that. Whereas if I'd not put a vertical team in place, it would remain at that grade level, surface level. And so for me, the power has come where teachers are now talking and seeing how one grade level supports the standard, how another grade level can expand on the standard based on the learning that has occurred from the grade level before, and then another grade level looks at where I need to go. There's power in doing that. And so for us, sharing out our modules and then looking at the end products, looking at the results of those products, looking at the building of an instructional ladder, we don't find ourselves repeating ourselves as we used to. We don't make assumptions anymore. They are hard reality.
Michael, you've shared the journey for teachers and the impact on teachers. Can you tell me a little bit about what learning looks like for your students? Perhaps sharing a few student success stories that are related to teachers developing their own curriculum?
Some of the interesting things that have come out of the building of our curriculum through the framework is I felt it was very important that we log what writing and what information is being gathered by our students in notebooks, for an example. And so in our school, we have kind of pretty much uniformly mandated that the notebook becomes the collection all for anything to do with the module. And we allow that to build as a reference piece of material for students to go back into, even when writing their end product. It's a wonderful way of students having that reinforcement that to go back and look at text, to go back and look at how I've graphically organized information is really what they ought to be applying when they are reading information with standardized tests or any information that they're going to utilize in their life. So we're building life skills as well into the development of content information. To me, that has also been the power behind LDC and the use of the framework. It has created a consciousness about how we instruct our students and what kind of experiences we want to have them gain from the build of the module. We have never lost sight, because we're in elementary school, of the importance of giving students hand-on practical experiences. They are embedded in all of the reading and the writing that we do, the research that we're doing. Does that help to answer the question?
That absolutely does, Michael. The thing that I've witnessed in your classrooms is the outcome of this process. Students that are engaged in rich, cognitively rich reading, writing, thinking, and hands-on experiences with each other, with their teachers, and with the outside world. It's pretty exciting. One other thing I'm wondering, we've heard this question at different trainings, so I'd love to get your input. How do you think that principals can know if teachers are being effective? How do you gauge that?
Well, I think you've said it in part. It's the level of engagement that students are exhibiting in the class. It's not just their level of engagement that's connected to curriculum, but it's the kind of the posing of their questions. I mean, when you have Socratic talks that are taking place at the elementary level, and it's high-level Socratic talk, you can tell that students have gained knowledge of that specific content. One of the things that was important to me was that students be able to argue and to debate the content and to have a set of different perspectives to dwell on. That is the initial part of our launch to LDC that I was missing. I didn't realize that we were not teaching our students the level of debate that I see today in our classrooms. They did not have that set of skills as part of the speaking and listening that has become such common practice with Common Core. We were transitioning at that point, leaving the Florida standards to the new Common Core. And today, I can say thanks to LDC, we have students that have well-equipped skills to handle the discourse between one set of thinking to another, being able to actually express themselves coherently and citing evidence through the authors that they have read about or the positions that authors have taken on varied content has become a powerful way of students being involved in this engagement, not just about merely doing an activity that supported something very loosely. We have gone so far away from that, and I attribute that to the framework itself through the training of how to build appropriate instructional ladders. But the most important thing that LDC has taught us is to pose the right question, and that stems from the template task. The idea that LDC has provided such a wide range of template questions for teachers to think, to pick, to choose from in a way of a menu has become a powerful tool that helps to direct and guide the instruction from that point on. Hence, that's what has helped to build the proper level of engagement in our thought process for our students. Invaluable, invaluable.
It's interesting that you pointed that out as the number one thing. And we hear that a lot, that the structure of the templates helps develop backwards design skills for teachers and helps them with decision points around cognitive demands, text and writing products. I guess my last question would be just to kind of follow up a little bit more in terms of how principals can best support teachers in implementing LDC.
I think of two ways. Initially, to get the training as much as you give the teachers the training. I think that there's power behind understanding what you're asking teachers to do by you going through it yourself. It is truly, if you're a curriculum leader or an instructional leader, to have an understanding of how to build good quality instruction matters. To have the same common language is very powerful. I think the other training for principals is to go through that jury process, go through it even with your teachers, and to be able to progress monitor, which is what principals ought to be doing. A principal needs a set of tools to guide them through that. LDC has afforded me that very opportunity in order to understand where the gaps lie in the module development that we're at. And I say that in the kindest sense, because if I truly am in mind with the growth mindset, our modules are not going to be right at the beginning. They're going to be powerful. They're going to change student learning. They have, that's been proven. But to go at it with sustainability, one has to have a set of tools to guide our teachers to perfect these modules so that they become more and more solid. And if a principal doesn't have all of that background knowledge to do it, then they're at a disadvantage, and I would question their ability to actually guide teachers to better instruction for kids.
Well, you make a compelling case for school leaders, and it's also a charge to them to be deeply involved.
I can't encourage school leaders, Barb, to also visit schools. I think, you mentioned earlier that we have been a national demonstration school and opened our doors. I have to say, if there is a single thing that has brought power, recognition, importance, it has been that to the teachers. And for that, it is one of the best moves that I have ever made, because my teachers receive feedback from our visitors and they feel they're on task. They feel they are accomplishing the mission when they receive the kind of recognition from the outside. These are people not within our district. These are people from well outside the state who are recognizing them for their level of work. In this profession, we're often judged by all of the criticisms that are made, all of the things that are going on that make us question education. But when you have the opportunity to open your doors to share out, teachers receive overwhelmingly such positive feedback that it helps to build their sustainability with a very hard charge to educate children. It helps to build this idea that I'm in this for the long haul because I'm being recognized by my peers. There's power in that.
That is so true. Michael, I'd like to close with inviting you to tell me one more story. I'm wondering if you could picture a student or a group of students for whom LDC has really been successful, and just tell me a little bit about those students. I know you have many stories.
I think that
went to life.
I think that LDC has provided us with the opportunity to scaffold for a variety of students. Our students are not all alike, and so our students, for some, information will come quickly. They will resolve it in their minds. For others, it requires task analysis and challenge from both them and their teacher. When I see students who get involved in this peer-to-peer, deliberate kind of gathering of information, that kind of hands-on opportunities that we provide them, I'll give you an example. During our demonstration day, we had students use our MakerBot lab, and they were learning about, in science class, habitats. What is the importance of the adaptation of organisms and life in particular habitats? Do we need to adapt? And yet that's a very hard concept to understand, this idea called adaptation. Now we know things have to change. And I said to my teachers, what about the student that understands that things do change, but do they really understand the importance of their resilience in life? And I said, what are the transferring ideas that go well beyond just the mere science identification of adaptation is, and it means that? How does it apply to the student? What kind of authentic experiences come? So out of our discussion with teachers, with my assistant principal and I, come the teachers now talking about how do I provide that kind of experience that transcends well beyond just the idea of adaptation in science. And so out of the MakerBot lab, our students created things, and I'll give you an example of, here's the paperclip. How can I change the paperclip that bundles only a select cluster of papers together to make it multifaceted, that it can handle 500 pieces of information together? And so in the MakerBot lab, they are now designing and engineering things that are taken from their world, from their authentic experience, collaboratively working together to engineer something new that could be put to practical use. And that's what our demonstration day showed our guests as to what they could do with just the principles from science now geared to STEM, now geared to something engineering, now geared to something mathematical. And then they had to put speaking skills and listening skills into play. So there became this whole blended and hybrid way of thinking curriculum. And that's what helps to bring diversity to the way we're presenting our curriculum to meet student needs in a host of different ways. I don't know if that helps to answer that question.
Michael, it does. It just makes me want to be at your school again. I just have to echo, you've talked about diversity, you've talked about common direction and growth. What I think is so inspiring is the access to opportunity that all students have. When you walk down the hallway in your school, in every single classroom, students are having these kinds of experiences, not just in one or two classrooms. Students are doing technical reading and writing at an appropriate level in kindergarten. Students are having debates with schools across town virtually and using today's Meet to blog. There are so many rich experiences that are happening across classrooms. I'd love for you to just give us one sentence or two about your 40-40-40.
Yes.
Kind of just tie it all up together, and if they can use that, that would be cool.
Our district lends a lot of support to the idea of backward design. And it does not necessarily subscribe to every school has to do it exactly alike in the same way. But the district takes a position, you're afforded an opportunity through its menu, LDC being one of them, backward design planning is another. Are you teaching curriculum to last 40 minutes, to last 40 days, or to transcend 40 years? And when that was presented in that way to me, I presented it to my staff, which helps to transform, and that's a great operative word, to transform how we do things in order to meet students 40 years from now. So are we teaching to last 40 minutes and it's in mind, out of sight, never to come up again? Is it going to last merely 40 days until we test them out? Or is it something that really transcends time and transforms lives the way we think because we understand things conceptually? So that 40-40-40 has become a very important way of looking at how we teach, why we teach, and what we teach.
Michael, thank you so much. We really need to do this more often. I appreciate your time here today and the continued support of your teachers and LDC.
Interested in learning more about curriculum development as well as professional development opportunities available through LDC? Anyone can visit www.ldc.org to
see teacher-created assignments targeting students' literacy skills that you can teach today. You can sign up for the LDC newsletter for more on the latest news and events, and view the blog of teacher stories on everything from LDC basics to education news and trends.
We'd like to thank Barb and Michael today for sharing their conversation, as well as LDC for sponsoring this podcast and for helping teachers across the nation connect and collaborate to promote literacy.
You can hear even more podcasts about additional ed tech and innovations in education on our website, gettingsmart.com, or through